Housing is always a problem, not just in this city, but across America. Just as soon as the economy starts cooking, it gets really bad. And we're seeing spiraling upwards. Cambridge doesn't have a lot of land. On the whole, I think, as a city, you've done a pretty good job trying to deal with this. So, tell us, how is the city of Cambridge going to try to make it possible for people of relatively moderate means to continue to live in here? Ken?
This issue of median income or middle class housing has come before.
Speak right here.
The question of middle class or median income housing was introduced in this term in a report that I helped to author on the Mayor's Red Ribbon Commission. The suggestions of that report are that we take a look at our surface parking lots in Central Square, particularly that are owned by the city and thought to be the lowest adverse use of those lots, and find a way to make middle income housing in Cambridge. No one literally is doing this across the country, but we know we're kind of a city of the very rich and the very poor. And that's not by design, so that we're responding to markets. But I do believe, if I'm real, I would like to put together a team that I've already selected at the Department of Urban Studies and Planning at MIT, that we could invent the way to do this housing for long-term affordability so that everybody could live in Cambridge, as was the case when we had rent control. So I do think it is achievable. I think Cambridge can do it. I think the land cost from city land is what will make it possible, and I think you should vote for me number one on the better plan.
Can you hear this? Yeah. Can you hear this?
Now that the mic is working.
Okay. You can hear it back.
No.
No?
Hi, I'm Jackie House, and with affordable housing, the city is already about 15% affordable. And what we are lacking is the middle income housing. And the gap is getting larger between the rich and the poor. And so we need more of that. We can do that in incentives similar to the affordable housing. And it's not so much where we're going, it's more where we're going to build this. We're already the second densest city in the country. We need to make sure that we build in areas where, such as Kendall Square and North Point, to make sure that we have much more affordable housing in those areas.
James Williamson.
Thank you. My name is James Williamson. I've lived in Cambridge for 42 years. In Central Square for most of those years, and then I was evicted as a result of a mortgage foreclosure, and was fortunate enough to find a place to live that's affordable in Cambridge. So this is personal to me. I now live in a major public housing development in North Cambridge, Jefferson Park, and I've been very involved in these issues. Just yesterday, I went to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund meeting. I bet a lot of you don't even know what that is. That's where all the key decisions get made in the city about where to spend the money that's available for affordable housing through the Community Preservation Act, for example. So that's going to be a key place where the work is going to have to get done. Now, MIT has 7,000 graduate students. They house only 39% of them. MIT owned land, MIT had deep pockets, and there's an opportunity for us to be asking MIT to house 100% of their graduate students on or near MIT, on land and in buildings that MIT either already owns or could build. That would lift thousands, potentially, at 1,600 anyway, of students who are out driving up the prices of housing in Cambridge. Am I at my end? Last 10 seconds. So that would be a good start, but we also have to protect and preserve the affordable housing we already have through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and inclusionary zoning needs to be increased. Thank you.
Does Cambridge require the colleges and universities within the city to build only for housing? No. Gary Miller.
Good evening, everybody. Pleased to be here. My name is Gary Mello. I live in Central Square. The City of Cambridge government controls two costs and two costs only. That's real estate taxes and it's water bills. Most people in the city, 85% of us, do not live in subsidized housing or any other kind of living arrangement. It is imperative that the city council control those real estate taxes, which are now at their historic high. And we've all predictable amount every year, as it has gone for years to come. We can do whatever we can do as far as helping out that 15% is fine. But let's address the needs of the majority here who deal with increasing costs that can be controlled by the city.
Thank you. My name is Mark Governor. Governor, thank you. I cast my first ballot for you when my first vote.
We're going to make an honor roll of everybody in the United cast the first vote for me. Actually, I owe you all an apology. Let me Bush 1. I've never heard of Bush 2. Mike, thanks for voting.
So this is, as Councilor Reed said, this is an incredibly important issue facing our city. I grew up here in Cambridge. I've seen Cambridge change a lot over my lifetime, most of it for the good, but not all of it. And this used to be a community where teachers, police officers, firefighters could set down roots and raise a family the way my great-grandfather did almost 100 years ago. We are no longer a city that allows people in those professions and that income bracket to do that. And that's a huge loss for us as a community. And so this is an issue that the City Council is starting to deal with in a more direct way, and is going to need to continue to deal with it in a more direct way. And as James said, and I'm glad you finished your point with talking about inclusionary zoning and other things, this is not a situation that we're going to solve one way. Getting MIT to house more of their graduate students is a piece of the puzzle. Raising the inclusionary zoning is another piece of the puzzle. Putting more money into the housing trust is another piece of the puzzle. Building more housing is another piece of the puzzle. And I know it's controversial to say, because I was talking to someone the other day who said, I want more housing, more parking, more open space, but nothing over 4 stories. And I said, well, unless we're going to invade Belmont, that's not going to happen. And so we have to build more housing. It's going to mean we have to go up. The question is going to be how high. But if we do all those pieces, we'll get there, and we'll once again be a city where middle-income people can afford to stay.
Next block of fun. This is something near and dear to me, obviously. This is a city that's rather well served by public transportation. What, if anything, more do you think Cambridge needs in the way of improved transportation? And what do you plan to do about it? Sorry, what do these candidates think Cambridge needs in the way of even better public transportation, and what are you going to try to do about it?
Hi, I'm President Phillips, and I would appreciate your #1 vote November 5th. You can vote for on December 5th. There's another election in December, don't forget that one. Governor, that's a very interesting and important question. Cambridge is relatively well served by public transportation. We're bisecting the red line. We can take the red line to almost anywhere and make some occasionally difficult transfers. The red line seems to stop in Cambridge, and public transportation, red line and green line both stop in Cambridge. I know Somerville is working on a green line extension. I'd certainly like to see the red line go past its present terminus and help our neighbors in Arlington and Belmont. We do need more intra-urban cooperation. The problems facing our cities and towns cannot be handled adequately by 352 isolated communities. But the red line is not enough. The bus network that we have presently is not enough. It's great to get a big bus and be the only person on it at 2 in the morning, but why are we spending that much energy and why are we running those vehicles? We need a smaller, it's called a jitney bus service, mini buses. Anybody who's ever been to Turkey or adjacent countries, what they call a dolmuş. We need a variety of public transportation options at all sizes.
Governor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen von Hoffman. I really appreciate the question about public transportation because it ties into what is my vision for a sustainable Cambridge. I'm currently the sustainability manager at the Cambridge Public School District, so sustainable transportation is something that I work on daily with the schools. In terms of the citywide effort for sustainable transportation, I think public transportation is a key component of the solution. We need to work on red line expansion. We also need to make our T-stops and our T-accessibility more accessible, not only to schools and students locally, but to universities as well. I think it ties into a bigger question of development and housing. As we continue to develop here in Cambridge, which will be necessary because we're experiencing population growth, we'll need to develop around our transportation nodes, such as our T-stops. I also think that improving bike lanes is part of the conversation around public transportation. As your councilwoman, I'd like to work in partnership with the state departments, as well as in collaboration with the universities on the public transportation issues. I think it's really about collaboration, and it's about having a master plan or master vision for what we want public transportation to look like for our beloved city. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Denise Simmons, Cambridge City Council, currently running for re-election. I appreciate your number one vote. When it comes to thinking about public transportation, one of the things that's very important, we stop to think about that. As someone who grew up around Central Square, our method of transportation when I was young until I was old enough to drive a car was always getting around by public transportation. That was the way we did it. And so I would love to see the city to continue to work out ways to get people out of their cars, supporting programs like Walk Ride Days. And the reason why I mentioned that, Walk Ride Days, as we all know, is a program that was started in Cambridge schools, which really encourages people to get out of their cars and get on their feet. Teaching our children to stay out of their cars and be on their feet. Extending programs like the Hub Bike program, but also developing housing that encourages people not to have cars. We've talked a little bit about that in Cambridge. We have to talk more about it, be far more aggressive about it, supporting the extension of the Green Line, and making public transportation the way you want to, prefer to travel, as opposed to wanting to get into their cars. So those are just some of the thoughts I had around that, and I thank you very much for that question.
Thank you very much. And good evening, and it's a real pleasure for me to be sitting here and to be able to speak to you here on this forum. And I'm James Lee. I think this is my first time running for office, and until 2 years ago, I was not even a citizen of the country, so I am really proud of the fact that I am. I would urge every one of you to think about their vote. And I do not take my right to vote for granted. It really, is just a duty that every citizen must fulfill. Now, that said, about the public transportation issue, I definitely agree with everything that has been said. So far by my colleagues, I think they all have some really excellent ideas, and I do see this problem as part of a large problem that is, that we all face in the Cambridge meeting. Problems I think about problems such as lack of affordable housing. So if basically we have if we have a system whereby all those who work in Cambridge, if they do not have to live in Cambridge, so they can live in other cities and are still able to commute to Cambridge, that is definitely going to lessen the pressure on the housing market. So therefore, I believe, in everything that has been said so far, we must study ways of, we must study ways to extend our subway system, and also we must do everything we can to stop any rises in fares of the MBTA, subway, and buses. So that the poor citizens are actually able to afford to ride on this.
Good evening. My name is Mushtaq Mirza, and it's an honor to see you, Governor. after a long time. That's all. Okay, I came to this city in 1973 and I worked for the store investor. And that time I gone through a very stressful situation. The red line was not running properly, and then there was an expansion on the red line, and the traffic was terrible. But now the red line is very good. After moving to the Cambridge, I gave up my car. And what I believe that we have a much better system right now than it before, but still we need to be improved. And one of the things we can do, just like any other country which I've seen, there are small minibuses are available. They can pick up the people where there is no accommodation, where there is no accessibility to the surface system. Like West Cambridge, North Cambridge, where people have to walk maybe 15, 20 minutes to get there, and especially during the winter time. Other thing which we can do is to increase the frequency of the buses and the routes of the buses, but people can use more public transportation. And again, I remember when I used to take a red line, I used to just drop a quarter, but now it has gone up very high, the passes. So I think that we should reduce the cost of the public transportation so anybody and everybody can afford it. And my personal feeling that public transportation is must, because as an environmental engineer, I believe that by using the public transportation, we can reduce the gases that affect global warming. And this is the best things we can do to have more and more efficient public transportation system. Thank you so much.
All good ideas. The legislature has just voted to repeal $160 million of that transportation package. Somebody's going to have to probably necessarily replace it. Today, we've had a sort of comment to know there's one huge missing piece of the Boston transportation system. What is it?
Connector.
North-south connector.
What?
Blue line and red line.
North and South Station aren't connected. And in my view, it's the most important transportation project. I'm always ready to remind that kind of stuff. But think if the commuter rail system was fully integrated, and folks from South Shore could get to Cambridge in one ride. Take 60,000 cars off the road every day, and it's not going to cost $8 billion to respect the records of big existence. So think about that, would it? Because I'd like to see that happen before I leave this planet. Five questions on open space from folks who submitted them. So, those of you in the next group of five, this is a city that's highly developed. What are your thoughts about additional open space, better open space, better recreation opportunities, that gentleman?
Thank you, Governor. That's a very appropriate question. I left my wife at home with a room full of 13-year-olds watching zombie movies for Cooper's birthday, and my 16-year-old was headed off to Fresh Pond to do what all teenagers in Cambridge do, and that is walk around the open space that we have. I'd much rather be here. That being said, we don't have space, period. It's a very crowded city. We don't have the ability to just go out and purchase large parcels of open space. What we need to do is we need to purchase very tightly defined spaces in the already dense areas such as where we are now, Eastern Cambridge, Wilmington, Harrington, Area 4. Where I live in North Cambridge, we've got a whole raft of very, very big areas. In other parts of Cambridge, it's much more crowded, and we don't really have a plan. I know East Cambridge has the open space crossing and so forth, but we're not seeing a lot of purchases. Arguably, open space is one of the things that brings people together, whether it's a sports field, or whether it's the dog parks, or whether it's simply for family picnics. And if you go to a place like New York City, the density works because you've got open spaces. You've got beautiful open space that people thought about long in advance, and that being maintained. And we need to be at least as aggressive in pursuing open space options as we are pursuing anything else. Thank you.
My name is Minka Van Hoosenkamp, and this is my first term as the Cambridge City Councilor. It's interesting that I follow, and thank you very much. It's interesting that I follow Councilor Kelly, because like him, I am very much in favor of making sure that we maintain open space. And that was a few of my votes in this past term reflected that desire. One of the things to add to what was said, I think that we need to think more about publicly accessible, privately owned open space. So that means get developers to grant access to open space. MIT's campus is a beautiful open campus that the public is welcome to go into. And I don't know that we take advantage of that. That should be part of our thinking of open space. The DCR owns a considerable amount of land in Cambridge, especially along the whole riverfront. And I think that it would behoove us to work more closely with the DCR and make sure that it's better maintained. The path that runs along DCR, runs along the river, really needs an upgrade from the DCR. Can use our help, and hopefully they will welcome the opportunity to work with us. I also think we can ask for donations of land, which was done from Alexandria, and that's the reason that there's going to be a fabulous park on the corner of 3rd and Binney. So that's a way to get open space, because as Councilor Kelly said, land is very expensive, and although we have money set aside to buy it, we can't often find it.
I'm Nadeem Mazin, I'm a local business owner and college professor. This is a very apt question. Thank you very much, Gov Dukakis. I think my answer for this question about open space also follows from general kind of much-needed citywide plan for development and open space in general. We develop parcel by parcel, and of course that leads us to increase tax base and to build biotech, build luxury towers with very little return often to the communities that we impact. So I think a citywide plan will allow us to look at traffic, also allow us to look at open space, and allow us to give primacy to those things that improve quality of life. Now, we can't forget that the quality of our environment correlates also with crime in the neighborhood, but it also correlates well with educational opportunities outside of the classroom. So we must put an emphasis on quality open space in order to improve educational outcomes and keep our streets safe. And I also think that, as Rita mentioned, the types of partnerships we can have with private developers and the linkage fees that we can apply to the biggest developers in order to take the benefits we give them when we allow them to upzone and apply that to affordable housing and open space have not been exercised to the fullest degree. We can put more pressure on developers, and in so doing, we can benefit our open spaces quite well. So partner with DCR, Charles River Conservancy, and other nonprofits in order to have a better and more assiduous impact on much needed open space.
Good evening. My name is Ron Peter. I'm a local author and activist. First of all, I want to express my appreciation for this opportunity to address the people. And also want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to come out. It's good to know that we've been involved in the process and which people actually care and want to hear what people have to say. I think this is probably one of the most difficult questions so far, because it seems like it's a direct conflict between development of affordable housing and other areas that are important in the city. It's clear that we're not going to build our way out of the housing situation, and it seems like to create more open spaces, probably to tear some things down. So to me, that seems like a direct conflict. So I agree with some of what's been said here, that there probably needs to be, definitely needs to be a whole holistic type of planning that includes not just the city, but the entire area, maybe even the region. Because I think when you look at housing development by itself, and open spaces by itself, you're going to have these conflicts, and you're going to have conflicts of interest that causes one area to undo the advantages or the strides that you made in another area. So I do think that it needs to be a little more complete planning as far as open spaces. I think that we need to probably hold developers more accountable for, rather than just allowing them to build higher and higher, to make sure that they understand that there needs to be open spaces incorporated in almost every development. But I don't see the type of complete planning that we need that I think is going to solve the open space problem, and that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. My name is Leland Chubb. I'm running for my third term in the City Council. Thank you, Governor Dukakis. It's nice to see you again. Better eyes than this is our last month. I would like to say, my father immigrated when we came from China to Cambridge in 1969. And as he sought to provide a life for his family, he could never afford to live in places expensive as Cambridge. We wound up living in the suburbs and the buildings where there was a lot of open space. So I appreciate the open space. And every time that a vote has come before the City Council to either require or protect open space, I've been right there voting for that. But I think it's beyond just protecting and creating open spaces, how we use our open space. So I've introduced orders and measures in the last term to try and allow dog owners to know there are times when no one else is using the park to enjoy their dogs in the park. Brought Wi-Fi in certain parks, opening up Wi-Fi access in the parks. I created barbecue pits in Danahy Park so that people can go and enjoy those there. I brought food trucks along the river so that people can, when they're dropping to the river, and enjoy that on Sundays and enjoy the food trucks there. And I've also finally I've created alliances with other cities that are facing similar challenges, like the Barks. We recently went through a contract with them, negotiated that they would keep their campus open, and then found out later that they kind of skirted around to figure out how to close it at night. Well, we're now having teleconferences with other cities that host campuses, Boston's campuses, so we can compare notes and try to negotiate better with our companies going forward. So, thank you very much.
Where am I next slide? The issue of governance, folks. This city has had a planning form of government for a long time. We've got a city manager who's made extremely well. There's a lot more than government. Complaining, man of last name, but makes it work a while. Thoughts about ways to improve Cambridge's government, make the existing system better, hold the city manager accountable. General thoughts about ways to improve the governance of this city.
Good evening. My name is Greg Morgan, and I want to thank the governor for coming here today. What he's talking about with the city manager is a nationwide search for the manager. Is that what you're saying here? And the governorship there?
Not just personalized to the city manager.
Well, there has to be more transparency then in government. Anything that goes on in City Hall, everybody has to know about it. And it has to be on the websites, it has to be linked on Facebook, anything that needs to be with education. I support co-housing. I just want to touch on some of the issues that the other candidates are talking about. Co-housing, parks, more transparency in government. Everybody should know what's going on in City Hall. The city manager can't get an awful lot of money there yet. And I know there should be a nationwide search for, that's one of the questions, and I support that issue. GregMaury.com, vote for Greg Maury. I'm a carpenter by trade. And we need to build more affordable housing. MIT, Harvard, the city of Cambridge can play a big role in doing it. Maybe we need rent control back there. Maybe we need that. I don't know. But if we vote on it, we will. We support the Democratic ticket, and we work for Elizabeth Warren and Ed Martin all over the state. So thank you very much. GregMaury.com. We've got brochures right outside there. Thank you very much.
Ways to improve the governance of the city.
Thank you, Governor, first of all, for being here. All of us, and good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Toomey. I'm a City Council State Representative, and I've served a number of years as a Cambridge City Council, and I've served the same city manager since I was elected, as he is now retired, and his new city manager coming in. I strongly support the current form of government. We have a planning form of government, which is a professional city manager and what we call a weak mayor in some regards, and that most of the personnel decisions are decided by the city manager. So it takes the politics out of a lot that happens in the city. I think over the past, certainly 32 years as the city manager from here, we've seen a great rebirth of the city in all areas of the city. We've seen great progress in the services that we provide to all of our citizens, even before they're born to the seniors. As I said, I also serve as a state representative. Cambridge is the envy of most communities across the state. The services that we provide are outstanding in the city. We've just seen complete renovation of our high school, more athletic facility there, the new main library, the new police station. We are undertaking rebuilding the King School on Putnam Avenue. We have designs for 3 other elementary schools, the pipeline to be rebuilt completely too. That's not happening anywhere else, and that's because it's a professional city manager that's in charge of making the decision, and taking the politics out of a lot of the personnel decisions that encompass the city. So I do support the current system that we have very strongly, and continue to advocate for that. We will be having a new search shortly. The city manager is appointed for 3 years, and I anticipate at the end of next year we'll be undertaking a comprehensive search of the residents and elected officials to select the new city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you all. My name is Jefferson Smith, and I live in Inman Square. I've actually worked the past 5 years in Governor Paul Patrick's administration. And what I bring to the table here is some experience, some expertise, as well as 10 years as a public servant. And quite frankly, as that public servant, I want to bring a proactive approach to our city government. And I think we deserve a process to choose the city manager that is brought to the people as soon as possible. I know we were promised that, and I think we should do it as soon as we possibly can, whether it's next week or next month. It should be implemented as soon as we can. And I think, quite frankly, the city government should be more proactive in not only our lives, but about the issues that are important to us. We mentioned housing, we mentioned transit, and we also mentioned open space. And I think part of the problem sometimes that we see in city government, and really not just in Cambridge, but anywhere, is that you want to make sure that not only your federal government, your state government, as well as your local government, is bringing the issues to you, to your home, to your schools, to let you know what's going on here. And I think that not only do I bring that to the race, but I think a lot of other councilors that would be elected this year would share that type of vision. In fact, here I go to door nearly every day, and I talk to folks on their doorsteps, and some of them tell me, listen, Jefferson, my child has special needs, and actually it speaks a lot to me because my brother and sister both do. And growing up, it was really difficult to afford some of the services that they needed. Many of the parents that I told, many of the parents that have told me that they need services found out the day that they went to school that they no longer had maybe a speech pathologist there available for their child. So I think a proactive approach there, you should find out the first day. Again, it's Jefferson Smith. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for being here today. I want to thank Gov Mike Dukakis. This is what's your name? My name is Dennis Benson. I'm a candidate for Cambridge City Council. I'm a lifelong resident. And, this is a tremendous evening because, this is democracy at its best. We have so many great candidates up here. When my parents came here in the 1960s from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. They came here for a better opportunity, and they worked in the factory in Kendall Square. My mom actually worked in the factory right across the street back in the 70s. And one of the big issues as we think about how to operate our government is, how do we connect our communities, our residents, to what's happening in Kendall Square? There's a huge disconnect right now between the companies in Kendall Square and our residents. We have a public school system where 50% of the children in our public schools are at the low poverty level. And if we're thinking about the future of the city, whether we are searching for a new city manager or whether we're sitting on a council, we've got to think about the residents of the city who are having a difficult time finding affordable housing or finding a job. We've got to strengthen our job training in our city and make sure that our children, the children that are walking in the shadows of these companies that are in Kendall Square, have an opportunity to be a part of the innovation economy. And that's really why I'm running for Cambridge City Council. So whether we're looking for a new city manager, the questions that we need to ask is how do we give our residents greater access to the economy that we have in our city, because that's how they'll be able to stay in our city for ages. So thank you again for listening, and please give me a #1 vote.
My name is Haley Yarden. Excuse me for not getting up. I live in Cambridge for more than 30 years. I know the city well. The problem is not one of planning government. The problem is that since planning government was first instituted, there have been two things that have been happening. One is referred to as catastrophic climate change. The other is globalization. In fact, Cambridge is ruled by an entrenched bureaucracy that is extremely resistant to recognizing what's happening in the world around us. And that is one of the big sources of the problems. It's a hierarchical bureaucracy, top down. This excludes large numbers of highly educated and intelligent people who are aware of what is happening in the world, who care about what is happening in the world, and know that what is being done here is in the service of the people who made the rules. All good bureaucracies operate by rules. They are highly professional. They only hire people who are expert in their fields, except when they're not. And the chief problem there is that they develop interests in things as they are. One of the biggest factors in lack of adaptation to the world around us is the interest of that bureaucracy. It is demonstrated frequently. This is one of the main reasons why we have persistent poverty and institutionalized poverty in Cambridge.
For the past 10 years, non-school city spending increased by 49%, while school spending increased by almost 28%. None of the public school buildings were renovated from the completion of the Peabody School in 2002 and renovation of the high school in 2010, even though many were in poor repair. What are your thoughts about that? You think it was inadequate investment in our public school system during those years when all the requirements? What do you propose to do?
Hi everyone, my name is Dennis Carlone. I'm an architect, urban designer, and I was hoping to get one of the first 3 questions, but I'll take the 5th one head on. I'm the person who did the East Cambridge Master Plan, the Leechmere Canal redevelopment for the city. Education is very important to me. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, went to Harvard. We were part of Say Yes to Education. No time to talk about that now, but the important thing is to come up with a master plan. A master plan of the city that looks at all the facilities and knows exactly what needs to be done when. And we're so intrigued with our financial capabilities in Cambridge, but you can work out a plan that actually plans financially where money is spent in the schools. Now, part of the school problem, as the governor knows, is the city relies to a certain degree on state funding. And some of those years there was very little state funding. But to me, there isn't a bigger priority. In fact, I would expand it and include pre-primary school. My thesis was on pre-primary education. And as you all know, half of what a child learns is before they go to school, at the age of 5. And so I'm a big believer of expansion in the school, and that would help students in high school who have difficulty having a much earlier form of education. The City of Cambridge has built water plants, has built vast improvements in many facilities. Frankly, I doubt schools was the high priority, and I would make it the highest priority. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Logan Leslie. Thank you, Governor, for being here, for answering that question. I'm a young person in town here. I have my wife's over there, and we have a young daughter who's 19 months, and she will be in the school system here, the public school system. So that is that's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Obviously, the school committee administers the school system. However, the council handles the budget. The council approves the budget, and so it is within the purview of the council. So we spent $151 million on the public school system in Cambridge. It's a very, very large amount of money. And we were rated, the school system is rated, according to Boston Magazine, last year, 88 out of about 150 schools in Massachusetts. And so I'm not convinced that spending more money is going to be the answer to the school system. Maybe the money we do spend needs to be better allocated. And again, that falls under the purview of the school council, the school committee, excuse me. So Cambridge is obviously a very wealthy town. It's a very attractive place to do business, and we have a very broad commercial tax base. But with that, it comes with a trade-off. And development is a hot topic, it's a very controversial issue. But we do see the benefits of that by being a very wealthy city. So that money needs to be, however, it can't just be spent without being accountable. So I think spending across the board, we need to be accountable on how that money is spent, whether it's a school system, whether it's education. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I want to say it's such a pleasure to
be one of the many candidates here that are very worthy of doing the job. Hello. I'm born and raised here in Cambridge. My name is Luis Vasquez, first-time candidate. In case you haven't noticed, I'm pretty young. 25 years old. I'm excited to do this. I have 2 kids of my own. I went through the system here. I'm proud of our school system. I'm proud of it. And I also have 2 kids of my own. We're happily married, me and my wife, and my son goes to the Kennedy Longfellow, and a 2-year-old is going to participate in one of the pre-K programs that we're looking to get him into next year. So we're excited about that. This is very personal to me. I also agree that the funds should be better allocated. For an example, at my son's school, every kid has an iPad. And to me, as much as the kids of this day and times, they know how to push all buttons and learn from them, they need to learn and know and master the art of turning a page, of reading a book, of smelling that new book, crunching numbers on the piece of paper. So that's really important to me. That's how I grew up. We had to move out of Cambridge. I'm a young parent. I found out that we were going to have our first son when I was 18, and I never ever pictured myself outside of Cambridge. We went to Somerville, and that was a culture shock. I was taken out of my element, and all I wanted, and standing up to the challenge of being a young parent, was to raise my son and any future job that I had here in Cambridge in our system, because we have the best education system out there. I went to Cambridge in July, and I'm so proud of the changes that happened over there. There was mold in the bathrooms, old lockers. It was crazy. I felt like I was going to bump into Patrick Ewing in the hallway at 17 years old. He's an alum from there. So I'm really proud of the changes, and I want to bring things back to the basics. And we can make it happen. We can make it happen, and I trust that all the candidates here are committed to continuing to have the best education system in place for our kids in the future. I appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Luis, and I appreciate you guys having me tonight.
David, let me hold it just a second. The council does have a lot to do with capital investment in the school system, doesn't it? Yes. They'll approve the bonds and all that kind of stuff. David.
Good evening, I'm David Marr, the City Councilor, and I have had the great pleasure of being both a City Councilor, former Mayor, and a member of the school committee in Cambridge. And I would tell you that there is no community that is invested as invested in public education as the City of Cambridge. We are spending a lot of money on public education. What the Governor just said is absolutely true, that the role of the school committee is to really figure out how to spend the school budget. The role of the City Council is to look at the capital improvements to the schools. I was very instrumental in developing the school plan that calls for the rebuilding of 4 schools. I can assure you right now there is not a single community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that is building a new school with just city money. Cambridge is that one community that's doing it. We just embarked on the rebuilding of the Martin Luther King School, which will be 100% financed by the taxpayers of Cambridge, not by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because it would have taken too long. There are some folks in this room, I'm sure, that are parents of kids at the King Open School on Cambridge Street. There's been a lot of complaints about that building and the deteriorating aspects of the building. That is the second building that will be renovated. So we're talking about rebuilding of 4 elementary schools coming up. And I also want to just say that we just finished a fabulous renovation of the Cambridge Ridge Atlantic School. And when you pair it with the library and the athletic facilities, it was a $200 million investment in our young people in the city, high school students. So we, trust me, are investing in public education in this community.
Thank you, and thank you all. And thank you, Governor, of course, and to everybody up here. It's quite a process to run, but it's a wonderful way to engage the issues of the day in the community. My name is Sam Seidel. I was a city councilor, and I am running to rejoin the city council. I miss my former colleagues so much. I just couldn't resist the opportunity to run again. On the issue of schools, I don't think we've underfunded our schools. I think the education component is basically receiving all the money it's asking for, and that ask is coming through the school committee and the school budget process, and they are trying to understand what the needs are of the students in this community and how do we provide excellent education. The council in general has been very supportive of that, and they need to continue to be supportive of that. On the issue of capital plans, it is absolutely correct. All of that money comes through the Cambridge City Council, and that's a case where, going back to the question about Plan E government, good management is allowing us to do this massive capital investment in our buildings, and that is a wonderful thing, and it's absolutely crucial as well. We all know, because we've all been in these various school buildings, they need a refresh. And they not only need a refresh as a building, but they need a refresh in terms of what the space is for education. We've really got to, in this community, envision what the future is and then push ourselves towards it, and this provides us with a huge opportunity. I'm going to close by saying, outdoor knocking, I met a two-parent working family who said they moved back into Cambridge because of the education. That is the first time I have ever heard that since I started running in 2005, but that says we're moving in the right way. Thank you.
My town across the river is deeply involved in trying to deal with the school problem. We've got a major bulge in school population. And a lot of people in Brooklyn, I think there's these people in Cambridge come over and do it. I will tell them, what if that doesn't exist at all, being reversed to the council not to do it further. Now, Joe, help me. Are we should we go back to the beginning? Again, I can't vouch for this, but somebody who submitted a question submitted this one. The current city council is generally considered to be very dysfunctional. I'll vouch for it. How would we make the next city council work better together? We've got we have a line of money for someplace.
This one down here.
Testing.
Yes. Great. Okay.
You know, I'm Ken Reeves. I'm incumbent city councilor. I have served the citizens of Cambridge for 22 years, 3 terms as mayor, 6 years as chair of the school committee. And I think I can comment on the dysfunction of the city council. I think all the councilors, I think, work as hard as they can to serve the interests of the people of Cambridge. What I find most challenging in our current council is the inability to make important decisions. It was very difficult to decide which direction to go on the city manager. And it really took leadership and experience of the experienced members of the council to get us to where we are today, to know what the continuity of our future is going to be, which is the most important question that we have. I'm very interested in the question that's before us right now about what to do with the foundry. Many of you know we have a building, we have to decide what to do. I am very, 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 very afraid that the current council will not be able to make this very, to me, simple decision in a timely way. So I'm hopeful that you, the voters, will send 9 people to the council who can make difficult decisions in a timely manner. Do that for the city. We just, the inability to decide the big questions is hindering our city's bright future. Is it dysfunction? In democracy, we serve with who you send. So send functional people, and then you won't have to hear about dysfunction.
Council dysfunctional. It is so. What would you do about it?
Thank you. That is a good question. This election is unprecedented in that we have 2 women leaving, and so we will have at least 2 new people on the council. And one reason I'm running is discussion, and all of the stakeholders are hopefully at the table, and all those issues are brought together, and then hopefully a decision will be made. But we need to elect people who will work collaboratively with one another.
Thank you. I want to go back to a couple of things before getting to this in my minute and a half. First of all, I want to say thank you all for being here. You're the leaders in your community. You're the ones who have taken the trouble to be here. And you go back and talk to your neighbors, and you're the people that your neighbors listen to. And I hope, there are probably at least two, and usually when there are two, there have often been three new people elected to the city council. And it's up to you to decide who of the incumbents you think deserve support for re-election, and who of those of us who are new candidates deserve to be on this council. And I hope I'm one of them. I want to thank Governor Dukakis. I came to meetings here in commemoration of Sacco and Vanzetti. And I want to thank Governor Dukakis for pardoning Sacco and Vanzetti.
He didn't pardon him, I couldn't do that. It's a terrible injustice to do that.
That's what fair enough, I agree with that. And there's doubts about the innocence of one of them, but I certainly appreciate what you did. And the final thing is, for those of you who live in this neighborhood, you may be interested to know that on Wednesday, in a meeting on Cape Cod, the Department of Transportation voted to approve a massive allocation of construction funds for the Green Line extension. Now, on this question, I think we have to ask yourself, the dysfunction, to some extent, is just part of what goes on. I mean, there are different points of view. But ask yourself, who on our council are for sale and to whom? If we had public financing, I think a lot of the dysfunction that we have might be a lot less significant. And we would have more agreement if we didn't have interference by institutions and entities with deep pockets who are having way too much influence in the politics of what we can and can't achieve on our city council. So think about that, please.
Gary.
Thank you, Governor. Gary Mello again. I watched it discussed for more than 4 months at the City Council between November 2011 election and March of 2012. Played around for the simple task of electing a mayor. It doesn't take that long. I just don't understand watching them posture and trade off favors as if they're simply trying to serve their own best interests. Upon election, I will emphasize in the very first meetings that we go for a mayor. I will be voting myself for Leland Chung if I'm elected. I ask that all of you find out who you wish to see as your next leader, your next mayor. It's a fair question to ask each of them. Another thing I'd like you to consider when we're looking at our next mayor, we have a number of councilors who have been around for a long time. If they can become mayor for the final part of their careers, they will be significantly enhancing their pensions if things go their way. Keep that in mind when you see the gamesmanship going on up front. Thank you.
Yeah, is it working? I'm going to answer this question, but I do want to say one thing about the last question because it was about education. And I'm the only person up here who's actually serving on the Cambridge School Committee right now, and I'm serving my 4th term. So early childhood education, capital projects around the schools, education is important to you. I bring a perspective and an experience that I think is unique and will be unique to the City Council. And that question, I wish I had gotten down on the schools. I'm not going to say that the City Council is dysfunctional. I have respect for everyone who serves on the school committee and the City Council. I may not always agree with them. I may debate fiercely with them at times, but I know how hard this job is. I know how much time we all spend away from our families, how much time we all spend in the community talking to people. And I really respect all my colleagues and everybody running for doing that. It is hard work. I am a social worker. For the past 20 years, I have worked with special needs children and their families. Every day, I bring people to the table who don't always see eye to eye to have difficult conversations and build consensus and to collaborate to solve the problem. That's what I do. 2 of the last 3 terms on the school committee, my colleagues unanimously have elected me vice chair. The school committee does not elect the chair of the school committee, they elect the vice chair. My colleagues elected me because I have the ability to work with all of them. I don't hold grudges, I don't take things personally, I work with them to solve the problem. I will do that on the city council if you elect me with your #1 vote on November 5th. Thank you.
One question that we received, which refers to the Foundry Building. The Foundry Building at 117 Larger Street here for the city is mitigation for upzoning with preference for community use. How will you ensure that the neighborhood, the Cambridge arts community, gets real input in crafting the RFP, choosing the winner, and having representation from the governing body of the Foundry?
Leslie Phillips again, we're still looking for your vote on November 5th. I'm also a member of the elected representative of the Democratic State Committee of Cambridge, although I work with Republicans, Greens, and dismay some members of the Democratic establishment, progressive Democrats, but it's important to get out to vote in all three of the elections we have coming up. I just want to take an opportunity to touch back on a couple of the questions, interesting questions that were asked over on open space. We have a fantastically important piece of open space in Cambridge. It's been under threat for a number of years called the LA Preservation of the Arlington-Belmont Cambridge confluence. It's a great example of why it's important to have inter-urban cooperation. It's an open space resource that we cannot afford to lose. On the questions of governance, we're going to be doing another city manager search soon, whether it's during the present contract of Mr. Rossi or a year or two later. It will be soon, and the citizens of Cambridge demand and are entitled to both the open public process and the nationwide search that was promised and abrogated the last time. And I want to thank my friend Gary Mello for mentioning the election of the mayor. It is high time for Cambridge to directly and properly elect a mayor. I know that it's not allowable under the present format of the city charter. We don't have to throw up Plan E, but we do need to have a thorough review of our charter and address issues such as that with respect to the boundary. This is an important issue, of course, and the answer very simply is we must have the most open and transparent public process with all the stakeholders at the table to deal with it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Governor, for that question. I've spoken with a lot of families about possible use of the Foundry Building. I'd like to see the Foundry Building become a space for our arts here in Cambridge. Some of the brightest moments of my time here in Cambridge in the past decade have been when I was a school teacher. I was a 5th grade teacher, and I've seen firsthand what it's like when we have supplementary education and supplementary programs, which the Foundry Building could provide. So I'd like to see it used for those purposes, and I'd like to work collaboratively with the Arts Council as your councilwoman on creating such a space. We saw just a few months ago the Laundry Building close and the Laundry School of Music. So that's a big question, I think, when we consider what we want to do with the Foundry Building. The reason that the arts are so important to me is that as a teacher, what I've really seen when I've worked with my students is that arts really open up a whole new avenue of communication. They allow children to connect with their feelings, and that's really important to me to see that happen. I think the Foundry Building would provide an excellent space for those kinds of opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. The Foundry Building is a wonderful, wonderful building. We're glad that we have this opportunity to talk about the use of a building for community purposes. When we talk about how we decide to use that building, of course, for me, community process is very important. As anyone knows, the kind of work that I do has always been and continues to be constituent-based. So as we think about how the building is used, I want to make sure that we always have people sitting at the table so that we'll have community-based meetings as well as meetings at City Hall. That those meetings at City Hall are at a time that the citizens can attend, which is extraordinarily important. So we want your voices to be generally, as a council, and I certainly do, want to hear your voice and have your voice have an impact. We want to have those meetings at a time when the citizens can attend. As we move forward to a citizen body that looks at how the building is used, I've always said and always believed that we want residents to be a part of any community action-oriented committee or commission. So I certainly stand before you today, not only looking for your number one vote, but looking for your number one vote as someone who always works to make sure the citizens of Cambridge, who we are elected to represent, have a voice at the table.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want to say that, as you're probably doing, as with being on the building, where the city spend money on, I believe it's really crucial that we work hand in hand with not just most popular special, not just most popular special, not just most popular special interests, but we need to get all the stakeholders involved. I believe that's what we should do as a city. We need to work together. And as for how the building or space is going to be used, I must say that I don't know really all that much about what the projects. I cannot really comment, but I can tell you that as the head of the council, I am going to listen to everyone, and I'm going to work with everyone to make sure that the building will be used in the best possible way for the common good in all the city. And in the same spirit, I just want to comment that on the problem or the alleged problem of the member of the city council not being able to work together. I can assure you that I really believe in working together. And in fact, I don't think myself right now as a race against anyone here. I'm just here to do what I can as a member of our community, to really make the city, a much better place to live. So I just feel that I will do my best to work with the colleagues of the council, and I will listen to you, and I'm going to learn from you guys.
Hello again, this is Mushtaq Mirza. And I'd like to introduce myself that I'm the only candidate here who is an environmental engineer, a diplomat environmental engineer. And he really cares for the water and wastewater and the environment. And I have been to Antarctica, I've been to the Arctic Circle, and I risked my life to study what the impact of the environment, the impact of this global warming is. So this is very serious business, and it's a serious problem, and we have to take that into consideration. Now, getting back to the foundry building, yes, I believe the foundry building should have 10,000 square foot of a place where people can have a theater or art, which is very important, and it should be for the population of not only the East Cambridge but everybody. So that is very important. The art should be there and accommodate. And the 40,000 square feet which is left, it should be for the small business. If we can have large big buildings here in East Cambridge and accommodate big tech companies, there should be some place for the small businesses. And that the 40,000 square foot should be reserved for the small businesses so they can have. So I support that the foundry building should be used for the community and 10,000 should be there for the community. Thank you so much, and I hope you can give me a number one vote to make some diversity in the city council to have an environmental engineer in the community. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's a lot of questions here about Kendall Square. So, give us your thoughts about Kendall Square. When you do that.
Thank you, Governor. Well, at the risk of giving you nightmares, I will start my answer off by saying, read my lips, don't sell the foundry building. That is the threat to all of us. And as far as Kendall Square goes, which is really the heart not just of our local economy, but the regional economy, it offers something to make that area the lively, 24-hour, everything it can be space that we're looking for. We need to look at the foundry building and other developments, both ones on the drawing board and ones already there, and how they fit into making Kendall Square a 24/7 place. We also need to think about what the housing is going to look like. We talk a lot about housing. We have a weird idea about who lives where and how long they stay there and what they do. And as we develop places like Kendall Square, we need to get a much better data-driven idea about who we have in these places. I think sometimes we tell ourselves fantasies about who lives, works, and plays, and we need not to worry about new ideas. For example, micro-housing. Not everyone needs 3 bedrooms. Maybe someone needs 420 feet. We need to push people to come into Cambridge and not bring their cars. We love the people, we hate the cars, right? We need to look at technology as being possibly the answer to sharing resources that we have lots of, but people are using inefficiently. There's lots of things we can do, and it's going to happen at Kendall Square, or it's really not going to happen at all. Thank you.
This question really ties into a lot of the other questions that were asked previously. It ties into housing, it ties into open space, and it ties into transparency of decision making, which was sort of the question, right? So the Central Square, Kendall Square, I live in Central, so Kendall Square is going to change even more than it already has changed. Think about the Volpe Station. That's a huge parcel in Kendall Square. And I think we're on the verge of convincing the federal government to give that land to sell in some way so that it can be developed differently. That's going to change the face of Kendall even more than what MIT wanted to do with their zoning. As I said before, we need to have more housing in Kendall Square for students and for postdocs and for junior faculty. And MIT really has an obligation, I think, to build that housing. Kendall Square, if you've been there recently, is a ritzy place, and it's just going to get ritzier. There's not really much inexpensive restaurants, there aren't inexpensive retail, and that trajectory is going to continue. As was said previously, Kendall Square is the economic driver, not just for Cambridge, but for this entire region. And there are huge forces at play to make sure that it continues on that really intense development trajectory.
I want to say unequivocally that we should not obviously sell the Foundry building. I'm a proponent of something we're calling bite-sized politics, and we're trying to make local issues more accessible. So we create animations and videos at voteredeem.com/blog, and you can actually do a run through the Foundry building at an event that we filmed called the Foundry Equation, and see how an arts and community space will look in that building. So I think it's important to actually bring people in to ongoing issues without 10, 12, 14 hours of meetings, keep people abreast, keep people interested and involved. As for Kendall Square, obviously we're onward and upward. It's a train that's already left the station. But if we want to protect local business, if we want to talk about housing, if we want to talk about incubator space, these are all things that are in the current plan. It's extremely important that we talk about how these things will be affordable in the current plan. We've made allocations for incubator space, but is this a venture-backed incubator, or is this an incubator coming out of CRLS, or coming out of a local college, or coming out of a bootstrapped operation? I don't think any of our smaller businesses are going to be able to afford ground floor retail, and we need to incentivize the extra bonuses that we give all these developers by tying them to value on ground floor retail, value on affordable and middle income housing, value for the community on all of these issues that kind of escape under the radar, and lo and behold, we find ourselves in a city with soaring housing costs and a host of other issues that never really substantively get addressed.
I'm tempted to answer whatever question I want. Kendall Square to me is symbolic of Cambridge as a whole. It's a symbol of the good and the bad. And so, but as a black minority, when I look at what's going on in Kendall Square, it's kind of scary. Well, Kendall Square, it's appropriate. When you look at the development and the growth, the innovation got Google, you got Microsoft, you got all the biotech firms. The soaring rents and property values. It just seems like it's pushing poor people and minorities out of the picture. But when you look at the planning documents for the development of Kendall Square, it's all chock full of references to diversity. But the irony is there's no accountability for that. Because, you look at the Kendall Square Association, there's no Black, Latino, minority businesses there. There's no reference to how these supposed diverse communities are going to be incorporated into what's going on in Kendall Square. You heard one of the respondents to one of the first questions talk about the growing gap between the rich and the poor. And yet, that person that's been on the council for 20-something years wants to take no responsibility for that, but then is going to ask to be elected, which means you're going to see more of the same. So I think you need some accountability if this, Cambridge finds itself in being a diverse community. People don't live in Cambridge because they want to live in a homogenous community. They want a diverse community, but there needs to be some accountability for that. How are minorities in diverse communities going to survive and thrive here? Otherwise, it's just a rich get richer, and that's what I say.
Thank you. My name is Leland Chung. I know it's been a while since I last spoke to you, but I'm still running for my third term on the council. I'm going to try to answer all the questions that came before on my website, lelandchung.com, which you can visit next week. I'm going to post the video answers. Kendall Square is actually one of the reasons I used to work in Kendall Square in venture capital, investing in small technology startups and companies that are trying to grow here. And one of the reasons I ran for the council in the first place was thinking about how Kendall Square relates to the rest of the community. It is the economic engine of the city. It keeps our taxes low. It gives us funds to invest in education and in people in need. And I've been at the table trying to improve Kendall Square. Anything from, I've brought the attention to the fact that we need more housing for graduates so that they're not competing in a subsidized way with residents of Cambridge. I've met with Capuano Martin talking about the Volpe Center. I introduced a new ordinance that requires big development to set aside space for entrepreneurs who continue to protect the little guy that's trying to start a business in Kendall Square. But I gotta say that Kendall Square doesn't mean anything unless we think about how it ties into the rest of the community. Unless we can teach our kids and bring them down to Kendall Square and inspire them that they can one day also be entrepreneurs, unless we can give them the tools and give them mentorship from people that are starting companies and working at Google and working at Microsoft, it does not mean anything. So my whole point about Kendall Square is how do we connect it and make sure that it stays connected to the rest of Cambridge. Thank you.
Here's a question, and back on housing front. Cambridge has been losing families because most new rental units and affordable units have only one or two bedrooms. While some are studio apartments and micro units are now being discussed. In addition, this has been noted, the lack of on-campus graduate housing is postgraduates and MIT, Harvard, BU, and the Cambridge housing market will affect raising rents for underreached families. Will you push for legislation requiring that all affordable housing have at least 2 to 3 bedrooms, and that the percentage of new affordable units under inclusionary zoning be increased to 25%?
Hello, once again, my name is GregMurray.com, and the questions that the governor just asked would be for more developers. All the developers that we have in the city of Cambridge, they increase more units. Why don't they increase more bedrooms? It has to come from the city council's passing zoning regulations. So that's how you would do that. You have MIT and Harvard in the city, just increase it. Increase more units. Don't let them build it until you increase it. It's very simple. It's equality, it's community, and opportunities. Where are the opportunities for our citizens in these developments? You have all these Fortune 500 companies in Cambridge. How many people are working there from Cambridge? So a responsible employees ordinance would be a great way to go. We need jobs for the people. People in Massachusetts, there's 30% dropout rate right now in high schools. These kids are not working. When you walk around these construction sites, see if you see any Cambridge people working. There's nobody working there. And I think Mr. Ross is a good guy, and but I think he's overpaid. But and I didn't raise his rate. The council said today raised his rate to be that. So we need more opportunity, equality, jobs for Cambridge citizens, education, and my uncle was at Cambridge Public Library for 28 years, and he taught me all this stuff. So he told me to get out there, carry the torch for the family, and
more comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly, I think there are a lot of jobs that are coming to the city of Cambridge, and that's what the problem is with the housing. There are so many jobs that are coming into the city of Cambridge, all the development, that these people who are working in those jobs want to live in the city of Cambridge. It's putting an incredible amount of pressure on the current housing prices. I know in my neighborhood I've seen housing prices just absolutely soar, as in all parts of the city. And that is a big, big challenge for all of us, how we are changing so drastically, so quickly. And it's an issue that the city council has been facing, especially in terms of the middle class. As Council Reese said, we want to be the city that has and have-nots. And that's the biggest challenge. How do we maintain that middle class? Those families that grew up here, a lot of the kids that I grew up with, they don't live the city anymore. The parents have the house, and when the parents pass away, they have to sell the house and they divide up the property. How do we maintain that middle class? We're losing it. We're losing it drastically. Just received an email from a good friend of mine I see standing back there now. Issues that she's having near her property in terms of the Portuguese family that lived there. They sold the house, that some of them moved out. And the people coming in are not reflective of what was there before, young students. The pressure of the students coming into the neighborhood. They've done a lot of work to pressure MIT and Harvard to provide more on-site housing for their students. But it's an extreme challenge, and it's capital at its best. And the housing stock in Cambridge has gone from a very moderate price to very extreme high prices. There's absolutely no question. So the little units, I'm not a big proponent of that at all. I do think as we could increase the percentage of affordable housing to 25%, but majority of the 25% has to be 2 or 3 bedrooms so that the families that are living in here. And that's the issue. We have the affordable housing, a lot of the studio or 1 bedroom. And so family can't live in that. So that's the big challenge, the middle class, and how we have 4, 2, 3, even 4 bedrooms in those units.
Like I said, I worked for Governor Bob Patrick the past 5 years, which means I had a government salary before I decided to run for city council. And quite frankly, it was really difficult to be able to afford to rent here in Cambridge, never mind buy something. And this is the biggest reason I'm in this, is affordability is the most important issue that we're facing in Cambridge. Not only now, but well into the future. And I think partly it's because we're seeing a good deal of development come in without associated housing with it. So we need to increase that housing stock. And I'll echo the point that was made earlier. Look, we do a pretty good job in terms of low-income houses. We should do more, obviously. But then we do a great job with market-rate housing here in Cambridge as well. The people that can afford it can move in here whenever they want. The problem is that we're hollowing out the middle. And if we hollow out the middle, that means that we're not getting the middle class here that drives this economy. And we need to be focusing our housing efforts specifically to 2 and 3 bedrooms to attract families here. And not only that, I'll make the point that was also made, but I'll try to add to it a little bit, is education is tremendously important because that is what is attractive to the middle class. That is what keeps people here. And the last thing I'll say is we need to help out with the affordability on fixed costs. A lot of fixed costs for families go toward daycare and they go toward education. We should be calling for universal child care in Cambridge, and not only that, we should be helping out folks at the lowest end of that spectrum and make sure our housing is available for them too. Thank you very much.
Good evening again. My name is Dennis Benson, and Nadeem, I think you're getting a really good dose of bite-sized politics tonight. We don't really, one of the big problems here is that, I grew up in our city. And I was born and raised in part of the Cambridge Public Schools. And one of the big issues that you really can't reduce to bite-sized politics is that, we're very near Newtown Court and Washington Mountains. And in Newtown Court and Washington Mountains, there are many families that live there that actually have no connection whatsoever with what's happening in Kendall Square. And one of the things that I haven't heard tonight is we need to focus much of our training and much of our education around STEM. The only way that we're going to be able to get our children into jobs at Novartis and Google and Millennium is if they're trained in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we've got to do a better job of training our residents, training our youth for the jobs of the future. Otherwise, they're going to be left out. When we think about housing, when we think about job creation, we've got to take a holistic approach to this. It's not just housing, it's not just job creation, it's not just the environment. It's all of it. And we're really doing a disservice to our residents, particularly those residents that have been in our city for a very long time, if we're not preparing them for the economy of the future. When my parents came in the 60s, they had a job. And many of the families that have been in our city for a long time had jobs in Kendall Square that were able to buy homes and raise their children and pay for their education. Those families can't do that anymore. Those families are being left out of this innovation economy. And when you look at Kendall Square, it's really a gated corporate community. And if we're going to move our families, and we really mean that we want to move our families from poverty into the middle class, we've got to prepare them for the economy of the future. And when you think about, when I'm elected to the city council, and I respectfully ask for your #1 vote, you're not just giving me a #1 vote. You're giving a vote to every single family in this city that is struggling to stay in our city. And that's what this election is really all about. And that's how we're really going to build a better Cambridge. So thank you so much.
Current policies have shown that they don't work, and therefore they're continued. That's enough of that. The real problem in housing is that nobody seems to recognize that there is no such thing as market housing. Most of the language that is being used of community development are words like inclusionary zoning, words like market rate zoning, incentive zoning, are words which cover up the facts. Incentive zoning means bribery. Inclusionary zoning does not exist. I don't know of any middle-class people who are living in the projects. Why not? If it's really to be inclusionary. The people who live in the projects are a subaltern class of people living in institutional housing and are oppressed by the way in which they are dealt with. That is ignored by most people. So as far as housing goes, first recognize that market rate housing is meaningless. The market in housing in Cambridge has been destroyed by globalization. Market rate housing means that a developer can come in here and build $1 million units, put them in the global market, and have 20 of them bought by a single billionaire and kept empty. There will be no change in housing until there is control of housing, and that means rent controls and a change in land policy which stops at that very important principle. The commons belongs to the people. The air above this city is zoned because it belongs to all of us.
Last set of questions for our last project. I'm going to ask you all one quick question for our 10-second response to the the selection process for city manager. With all due respect to some of you, I must say personally, I'm not a great fan of national searching. Because my experience tells me the most effective public management are people who are quite forbidding. Talk to us about your view of how about that, how long it ought to take, and some of the criteria you're going to be applying.
In case you forget, my name is still Dennis Carlone. I have been active with the City of Cambridge for 30 years as a consultant and worked with all the different offices. I agree that people who work with the city probably know the city more, but I also agree that if the council promises a national search, they should do a national search. That did not happen. Financial management is very important. However, there's other management. Frankly, the council has not forced upon the city manager to be a visionary as far as the city goes, and anything beyond finance of facilities. As far as working with neighbors, many more developers come to see the city manager than neighborhood groups, and frankly, they're welcomed more. So this to me is absolutely key. There has to be a master plan. There were questions about housing. We can easily, through zoning, specify certain areas should only be housing in Central Square, for instance, with ground floor retail. Once you have housing or biotech or offices, there's no question what's going to get built. The higher value is biotech, and that has been the financial approach to the whole organization. So to me, you need somebody who has the whole view, who's interested in building community, not just having $120 million in the rainy day fund. It goes beyond that, much beyond that.
Logan, selection of a receiver.
Again, my name is Logan Ledley. So the selection of the last city manager, the process was not something I was privy to. So I can't speak entirely on the criteria that was in place. But I agree with Mr. Carlone here that with the national search, if all the counselors got together and promised a national search, a very comprehensive process, then that's exactly what we should have. And there's a lot to be said about a continuation of the Healy administration, which is essentially what Rossi represents. There's a lot to be said about continuity, and I think that's going to work well while we can implement another search. And I would also like to echo what this gentleman said about what goes into being a city manager is much more than financial dealings, much more than a resume with managing other cities or managing portfolios. There's a lot of accountability that needs to be implemented as well. I'm in favor of city manager form of government. I think it's been very effective here. And a strong city manager has been essential in making Cambridge strong. But with that, we need a strong council to keep that city manager accountable. Because the councilors are accountable. Every 2 years this process goes on, and you as a voter have the prerogative to hold each individual councilor accountable for their actions. So with that, I think that with this search for the Rossi's replacement, we need a very long, comprehensive process where personal dynamics are put aside, the council work together, and we do have a national search for the best person possible. Thank you very much.
Is the other hand mic aware of something like that?
Right here.
Speaking of STEM. I went into politics with a charitable deed in physics. So,
This is fine for me.
is that okay?
You won't need for that, but.
Go ahead.
All right. So sorry. I feel left out. There's been a lot of plugins for websites. You can come knock on my door at 23 Market Street. I'm happy to answer your questions. All right. I want to be real. I want genuine relationships. That's what I strive for. That's what my campaign has been about. You can also tweet at me and vice versa. Very active my name on my own. So a national search, that's nice and all, but we can't forget this is Cambridge. There's many capable people walking among us, or even in this room maybe, that are capable of filling that role. How beautiful would it be to have someone that would be in that position, that used to play on our streets, for example, or went to our schools, or lived here for 20-something years, 30 years. That would be beautiful. That's something that can't be lost in translation. You need to have a sense of culture in Cambridge, which is on the up and up. We need to have something in place, a system and a person that can relate to the diversity that we have in the community. And that's not just racial, that's not ethnic, that's different economic backgrounds, different beliefs, religious beliefs, as well as
ethnicity. So that's what's important to me, and as a city councilor, that's what I'll strive for, and that would be my criteria for being a city councilor.
Let me start by saying that I think that the City Council made a very, very wise decision in selecting Richard Rossi as our next city manager. I think Mr. Rossi has 40 years of service to the City of Cambridge and has done an extraordinary job. Is he Bob Healy too? Absolutely not. I think that what we see is that we've got a person who is very capable and is setting his own agenda along with the City Council, and I'm very proud to be part of that. There is absolutely, the City Council made a decision that the continuity was very important. This has been an extremely difficult time for municipalities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and around the country, and what we wanted to do is to not start fresh at this junction. And what we decided as a council was that we would take and we would do a very in-depth community process, a visioning process, a strategic planning process when we do the next city manager search. It was not about the current search. The council made a very, very calculated decision to hire Mr. Rossi at that point. And what we have said is we spelled out, and I was one of those folks that interviewed the consultants going forward, that we want every neighborhood represented, we want the business community represented, we want the nonprofit community represented as we go forward in the visioning process for what this city is going to look like going forward. But right now, I believe we've got it right, and I'm very, very pleased that Rich Rossi is the new city manager.
Hello, and good evening to you all. Sam Seidel, just to remind you. Let me start by saying I do believe Rich Rossi is the right choice in this transition time. But I want to go back to a couple of other issues that came up before. I think between the city manager search that will be coming up, the issues around Kendall Square, this city is in a time of change. I think we all can agree on that. We see it all around us. And that is why, to go back to an even earlier question, we need a council that doesn't break down and dysfunction. Because when Rich Rossi goes, there will be a new manager. I take the governor's point, Governor, I thank you for that point. It's very interesting to hear that maybe somebody from the community has a better sense about all of the different intricacies of what's going on in Cambridge, what the history is, who the people are, and maybe that's something that we all have to think about. But in this transition time, the importance of the council is going to grow. And the council needs to be able to assert itself, both in the search for the new manager and in rebalancing the relationship between the manager, and I think we all can agree, and when I was on council, I served with Bob Healy. I liked Bob Healy, but it was very clear to me that Bob Healy had seen many city councils come and go. So it's going to be very important for this next set of councils to rebalance that relationship so that the people's voice can be heard as we become a city of the 21st century. Thank you.
One last pop question. You've got 10 seconds. As it is currently written, do you support the Connolly net zero vision?
No.
Who's next?
Not as written.
We need to define what renewable energy actually is. This is not on. We need to define what renewable energy actually means. That's a flaw in the current language. I did sign the online version of it. I think it needs to be refined. We need to start by defining what we mean by renewable energy.
Okay, 10 seconds.
Thank you. Gary Noel. No, there is no such thing as net zero. Thank you.
Thank you. I would not vote for the petition as is. I agree with the goal, but we need a more comprehensive conversation with more stakeholders to figure out how we're actually going to get there. Sometimes leadership is taking a step back and doing it the right way.
an example. Cambridge needs to be an example on decision.
Hi, my name is Kristen Von Hoffman. Yes, I do support the Connolly petition as it's written.
Denise Simmons, candidate for re-election. Appreciate your number one vote. I certainly commend the petitioners on what they're trying to do, and I look forward to working with a process so that we can have the environmentally sound community.
James Lee, I definitely like the idea, but I'm not sure whether in the present form that this is the best proposal that we can use.
Hi, this is Mushtaq Razaki, and as an environmental engineer who has been to Antarctica and the Arctic Circle, I do know there's a serious problem with global warming, and I conceptually and as a goal, I support the net zero, but we do need to make the changes.
It's a great idea, but passing the Connolly petition just moves all those buildings to Boston and give them no one any favors. So we can have this discussion, we can pass the right zoning. I have an awful lot of questions that haven't been answered yet, and at some point when they get answered, hopefully we'll pass zoning that does what we needed to do.
This is a serious problem, as has been said before, the fact that there is global warming, and we need to take extremely bold steps like this. I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. This is good, and I will vote for it.
If you go to votenadim.com/blog, you can see a whiteboard animation we made explaining it. I think my co-panelists might misunderstand it. It's not net zero on site, it's sourcing green energy from the grid. I support it, and I think a few tweaks of language, like defining what maximum means, is all in order when we say maximum on site, or maximize renewable energy consumption.
Obviously, I mean, I support the spirit of it, but my concern is the effect that it would have on small businesses and increasing the development. So, for that reason, I would say no. I just want to remind everyone, November 5th is election day, but that's also my birthday.
I think it's amazing we live in a city with the intellectual resources, the community spirit, the financing, that we even have this conversation with serious basis on. I used to work in the Department of Energy with Stephen Chu. I think climate change is something that is the crisis of our time. We need to take bold action. But I really have an issue with, this is the recs in the way the rec language is written in the petition. I would like the spirit, but I don't think as written and support it. So, again, my name is Nathan John.
I do support this. We have to limit emissions in buildings. Green buildings is the way to go right now with technology. So I would say yes, and there's clean up the buildings, more efficiencies, and more affordable housing in these units, with 3 bedrooms and everything else. And it's greatward.com.
Thank you. I believe the Connolly petition needs a few more public hearings. There is a public hearing, the mayor's organized on October 10th at the main library with some experts to come in to assist us in this. So we're all hoping, I think, to vote for something like this. We're proud of the work that the city of Cambridge has done over the years. All our buildings in the past 10 years are built to the highest energy efficiency, and we're very proud of that. And so I do hope at some point that we're able to vote for some version of the Connolly petition.
Hi, Jefferson Smith. I do not support the Connolly petition as currently written. In fact, I think we absolutely need to do everything we can to stop climate change. But I have a lot of questions about this petition. It hasn't seen a lot of public process, and I would like to see it. Thank you.
I support net zero. I support sustainability. I do not support the Connolly petition as drafted. I was actually one of the first few, the first incumbent to actually take a public position against it. It's actually on our website at www.votebenza.com. I think that we need to continue to discuss the issue. We also need to look at net zero discharge and what we do with rainwater when it collects and how that can be useful in our community. So, we have a lot of work to do, and again, we have to look at this as a holistic approach, environment, housing, and job creation and job training for our residents. Thank you.
As a Green Rainbow Party member, I give fact that it doesn't accomplish everything that is needed is totally beside the point. What it does do is impose on corporations full cost accounting. It requires of them a full accounting for the consequences of their actions. As far as I'm concerned, what is at issue here is residents, not corporate stakeholders, but stakeholders whose only interest in Cambridge is money.
I'm still Dennis Carlone, and I'm one of the promoters of the Connolly petition. I'm one of 7 who are sponsoring it. MIT and Harvard have the highest and the best scientists and engineers who are designing net zero buildings now for Switzerland, for Asia. MIT at one time, about 7 years ago, the president said, we will make that kind of campus. The council had a choice. They could have made all the new development MIT is doing as net zero. The scientists are there. At the last minute, they changed the decision. Half of Cambridge is predicted to be underwater by 2050 during a mid-level hurricane. Half. Ridiculous. England, by the way, is a law next year. All residential buildings will be net zero by 2019, all commercial buildings. We're talking about it. Ridiculous.
My name is Logan Leslie. Cambridge is certainly innovative. Cambridge is certainly a leader in environmental stewardship, but I do not support the petition as currently written. I think decisions like this don't exist in a vacuum. We need to look at the economic implications. We don't want to push business elsewhere. And we want to achieve these goals through incremental means and looking at the far side of impacts.
Cambridge could be a beacon of light when it comes to these conversations and issues. We need to take that responsibility really seriously. I'm really glad that the issue was on the table, it was brought to our attention. I'm a supporter of the goal and the passion behind it, but I'm also looking forward to getting more people involved in the conversation, not just a select few, and that's not a reflection on what has been going on. I feel like the ideal situation for me would be to see this conversation tour all around Cambridge, tour even the youth centers, housing complexes, projects, just everywhere. That would be the ideal situation for me, to get as many people involved, as many people from different walks of life involved in the conversation, and to understand what this is going to do and what it means. Thank you.
I'm the chair of the ordinance committee, which is the committee where the Connolly petition is right now kind of parked, if that makes sense. And the conversation is just beginning. So we're very, very early in the process. I think this is a worthy conversation, and I think it is one that I think we can probably come out with some agreement and some change. I will say that Cambridge was one of the first cities to adopt the stretch energy code, and we've been doing a lot of good work. And I will say that the Connolly petition is very, very narrow, and we'll be looking at that.
Thank you again, Sam Seidel. I do support the Connolly petition for 2 basic reasons. We have to push this issue, and it's the only reason people have come to the table to talk about it. It's the right way to do it. We're in Cambridge. We can make this happen. We can actually lead on this one.